A long campaign is now.
This is the car market in Mogadishu.
NATO's military success against
many Western nations.
This is on assignment.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. In this half hour, we talk with our VOA reporters far and near about the stories they're covering. I'm Alex De La Real.
And I'm Imran Siddiqui. Coming up, a TV show about women's rights in Afghanistan.
Body cameras for cops in the U.S. The movement is on.
40 years later, a VOA reporter back in Cambodia goes inside the home his family had to flee.
And a new underwater documentary exploring the importance of ocean wildlife in 3D.
On Assignment starts right now. In Afghanistan, women's rights activists are said to be under siege. Amnesty International says the activists face mounting violence, including threats, sexual assault, and even assassinations.
The London-based group says the Afghan government is failing to protect women, and the human rights gains made since the fall of the Taliban are at risk. As VOA reporter Henry Ridgewell tells On Assignment's Philip Alexio, a TV show produced in the capital dramatizes this struggle. Take a look.
Camera, rolling.
On a back street in Kabul, the cameras roll and filming begins on Shireen's Law, a TV drama that aims to challenge conservative social norms. The central character is a working single mother of 3, trying to escape a forced marriage and battling taboo issues like rape and family violence. The show's director hopes it's a catalyst for social change.
Henry, this TV series comes at an interesting time in Afghanistan, considering that more and more people in Afghanistan have television sets now.
It does. It's really something of a first for Afghanistan. Something of this nature hasn't been tried before in terms of the subject matter that it's trying to tackle. And the director, Max Walker, thinks this might be one of the best mediums to try to start climbing that great mountain of changing societal attitudes towards women, to trying to stop the kind of abuses we're seeing towards women currently. Around 50% of Afghan households now have a television on current figures, and they hope that this kind of drama will prove a hit. People will start talking about it, people will start debating the issues that it brings up and really bring out into the open an issue which so far has been hidden behind closed doors, behind closed walls, and largely people don't want to talk about.
Activists say women's rights in Afghanistan have slowly improved in the past decade. But a report from Amnesty International warns those gains are at risk because the government is failing to defend them. Female workers, including doctors and teachers, and rights activists are being attacked and often killed.
Well, I find it interesting, Henry, that, of course, people will say progress has been made in the country when it comes to women's rights. But there are women in parliament now. That's been one of the changes. So it sort of sounds like their voice, is it being heard? Are they having much of an effect? Any way of knowing?
There are several. There are 69 MPs currently in the Afghan parliament, which is more than some European democracies, for example. But of course, it's a slow process to try and bed those changes into Afghan governance and Afghan society. Some of them have very bravely led the campaign to improve women's rights, and many of those MPs have been targeted with violence. The last incident being in November last year, when a car bomb attack targeted the convoy of one female MP. She wasn't hurt seriously, but 3 other members of her team were killed.
A lot of the attacks, of course, were from the Taliban and conservative forces, but there were also several who were not from the sources that you would think would be attacking. These were government officials, local commanders, and even their own colleagues.
And the response of the international community has been far from adequate.
Threats have been ignored even after repeated warnings.
Certainly says a lot about these women who are trying to make this television series, because obviously there have been women, if I understand, who have done some TV programs and they've been killed.
That's right. Anyone, any female person in the public eye, really, be they a politician, a television star, a sports people, takes a risk.
Many women who have appeared on television have been killed. Shireen's Law lead actress Lina Alam is well aware of the risks.
When they say cut and I'm standing and waiting for the shot, I'm always scared that somebody may throw acid on me or somebody may hit me with a knife.
So what does the director, Max Walker, what does he want to get out of doing this television series?
He says that he wants to open up that debate. He wants, even if it changes the mind of just a handful of people.
If that is all that I managed to achieve by getting this series up and started and the momentum going on it, and for them to sort of go, okay, they're not bad, they're just human, doing the best they can, then hopefully I've done my job.
And Shireen's Law, the show that Henry was reporting on, will be broadcast later this year, and its producers say that they hope it will bring some change.
We're taking a break now, but when we come back, moves toward greater use of video by U.S. law enforcement. You're watching On Assignment. Here in the United States, the recent shooting of an unarmed black man by a white police officer in South Carolina has prompted new calls for police to use body cameras. A U.S. congressman is sponsoring legislation to make that mandatory for all state and local law enforcement who receive Justice Department grants. And joining me now is VOA's Doug Bernard to talk more about this. Doug, VOA spoke to Representative Emanuel Cleaver of Missouri about this bill.
That's right.
How much support do they have?
Well, to the degree that any idea in Congress these days has a lot of support, this might just be it. The idea is pretty basic. They're looking for ways. Emanuel Cleaver, representative, a Democrat of Missouri, along with Senator Rand Paul, Republican of Kentucky, also presidential candidate, are looking to find money to fund the use of body cameras, these devices that police wear that record audio and video that can be switched on and off. I think it's important to remember that in the U.S. there is no national police force. We have local police, we have county sheriffs, we have state police. So there are thousands and thousands of jurisdictions. So keeping track of who gets shot and under what circumstances has been very difficult. So the idea is that if police start wearing these cameras, that might lessen the incidence of shootings such as this.
Will they be on all the time? What if they forget to turn it on?
They can be switched on, they can be switched off, and configured to automatically come on or turn off. It all depends on the configuration that the police department wants to use.
All right. Tell us a little bit about the case in South Carolina. How is it added to the outcry over police brutality?
Right. So earlier this year, in April, in the town of North Charleston, South Carolina, a 50-year-old African-American man, Walter Scott, was pulled over for, of all things, he had a broken taillight, which is about the most minor infraction you could imagine. Now, we don't know what happened, but a confrontation ensued with police officer Michael Slager. What we do know happened, however, is because a bystander was taping it with their mobile phone, is that Walter Scott was running away and Officer Slager fired 8 times, eventually killing Walter Scott.
Some police are already using these cameras. How's been their feedback?
The feedback has been mixed. I think police initially are reluctant, perhaps, to use them. Remember, these people are in very often dangerous situations. So anything that changes the way that the police and the public interact with each other, I think, is regarded with some reluctance. There are some police departments and police officials, after using them, that say, you know what, we do agree. These do seem to lessen hostile encounters between the police and public, and therefore shootings, unjustified shootings. And so, they get a mixed reaction. There are concerns, though. It's important to remember, on the police side, imagine if every police officer is taping every encounter. You're talking terabytes and terabytes of data. Where is it stored? How long is it stored? Who has access to it? These are important questions. And on the public side, I think there are 2 areas of concern. The first is that one of privacy. I mean, if I'm a police officer, well, they're being recorded, but you're also recording me, and maybe I don't want to be recorded. The other thing I think is a larger concern, this is for everybody. We see video and we think we know what we're seeing. But I've seen a number of these shots. The cameras move, they jiggle, there's all kinds of noise. So interpreting what's actually taped is really a challenge. And I think we all need to think about how we learn to see what actually happened and not see what we think we see.
That's why they need to take time and not jump to conclusions until all evidence is out there.
Yes.
Very interesting conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Happy to be here.
VOA's Doug Bernard. We're taking another break. When we come back, an emotional trip down memory lane with a VOA reporter forced from his home by Cambodia's Khmer Rouge. You're watching On Assignment. April 17 marked the 40th anniversary of the Khmer Rouge takeover of Phnom Penh. Among millions of people forced to evacuate Cambodia's capital city was VOA's Poch, who recently returned to the house where he grew up.
Yeah, and this evacuation was just the start of the troubles caused by the Khmer Rouge as the regime began its reign of death and terror. I talked to Rasay about his own family's experience. Take a look. Tell us a little bit more about that history for you of being forced to leave Phnom Penh.
Over 1 million people had to evacuate the city on April 17, 1975. The Khmer Rouge came in and people were excited at the time. They thought, oh, the war was over. We'll start rebuild the country. But just a few hours later, the Khmer Rouge soldiers start telling people to evacuate. And they were telling people that the Americans were going to bomb the city. And that's why we had to evacuate. And we had no choice but to leave immediately at gunpoint. There were some, I did not witness, but I heard stories that they actually killed some people who resisted, who did not want to leave the house. And for my family, we had to go right away, so my mom had prepared, a quick meal, some boiled egg, and then we ate, and then we had to leave. And at that moment, for some reason, I felt like, is something going to happen? I'm not coming back. So I tried to remember the details, but now all I can remember was that last meal, and when I left the house, I turned around and take another last look.
Talk to us about the moment. Take us to that moment when you went back to your old house.
Yeah, I went back to the house several times in the past when I went to cover a news event for VOA. But this time every time I always stand outside and take some pictures. But this time the lady who was a servant at the house is rented to a Frenchman. She told me, she asked me and I told her who I am, that I lived in the house before, and she let me in. It's like bring back a lot of memories and seeing the house, but they change the appearance. They expand the house, they make more rooms. The garage turned into a room. And when I left the house, it was 40 years ago, a long time ago. I was a young boy. In my imagination, the house was much bigger, but in reality, it's quite small. Right. But the thing is, a lot of people share the same thing, but they don't go either. They just drove by and then they say, oh, they tell their children that this is the house, but they never went in. But I had the opportunity to go in and make a video using the iPhone. But life goes on in Cambodia. People don't notice much. They are focusing on building their lives, and they have come a long way from 1975, 1979 when the Khmer Rouge fell. So people were busy getting ready to celebrate the Cambodian New Year, which was April 14, 15, and 16. And the fall of Cambodia to the Khmer Rouge happened the day after the New Year.
You wrote on our website about the personal toll that it took on your family and personal losses that you suffered.
My mom did not go back to Cambodia because she was, so the trauma was so heavy on her. It took a heavy toll. She went back to Cambodia only a few years ago, only after like 36, 37 years later. Yeah. And I showed her the video. The only thing she talked about is like, oh, the house looked different, but she didn't go deep into her emotion. For Cambodian Americans, a lot of us turn this negative experience into something positive. Some people write books they write memoirs. Some people start an NGO and go back home and help with the school, building school. bringing school supply. They do, each does, different things to help Cambodia. So they're moving on, but they turn it into something positive.
And Rasay also turning his experience into something positive after seeing his younger brother and sister die in late 1975 and 1976, and the Khmer Rouge take his father and grandfather away in 1977. Extremely tragic history here, and we are grateful to Rasay for being willing to share a little bit of it with us.
Moving on now to another family story. Jean-Michel Cousteau has spent a lifetime exploring the oceans, following in the footsteps of his father, famous filmmaker Jacques Cousteau. Equipped with an IMAX camera, Jean-Michel and his crew filmed 100 hours of underwater footage that reveals how the smallest life in the sea is vital to all life on the planet.
And the result is a 40-minute documentary in spectacular 3D. VOA's Penelope Pulu spoke with Cousteau and tells me all about him, the movie, and its mission.
He started diving since he was 7 years old.
Wow.
And now he's in his 70s. He's been diving for 69 years.
Wow.
And he keeps on diving.
And his father was a famous ocean explorer, right?
Right, Jacques Cousteau. He was actually the pioneer of underwater exploration. We all grew up with him.
So you had the chance to sit down with Jean-Michel and sort of pick his brain about this new film. Talk to us about that.
The film is very intriguing and impressive on many levels. Number one, it was filmed with these breakthrough cutting-edge cameras. Using new technology that allowed him to record microscopic underwater creatures in slow motion 3D, he was able to film 30 new species, many of which could not be seen with the naked eye.
When you're filming it, you bring it back up to the boat where we are, and we have a 3D screen, and we can see it with glasses on. You can see something we have never seen before.
It's almost unreal.
Yeah.
That this is made by nature, and yet it is under there, and very few of us know how it looks. And that's exactly the purpose of his film. Not only to entertain, but to show us that this world exists and we are unwittingly destroying it.
I wanted to talk about that because he has a very specific mission in terms of how he relates what he films under the sea.
He advocates two things. One is the water needs to stay clean for the underwater species that are feeding us at the end of the day. But it also needs to remain clean because we are going to need this water for drinking purposes and irrigation purposes. He says at this point, fresh water on our planet is less than 1% of the total sum of water that we have. Cousteau is a fervent proponent of desalination to create clean water for drinking and irrigation. But he says that can only happen on a large scale if we clean the runoff before it flows into the ocean.
Today, you have between 4,000 and 5,000 children under the age of 5 that are dying every day because they have no access to clean water or enough water. That can change. We can decide to make it happen.
What struck you most when you had the chance to sit down with Cousteau and talk to him? What struck you most about your conversation?
How vivacious he is. I felt such envy to look at this man. First of all, the life he leads. He leads a life underwater. You can see that he's totally a fish out of the water when he's in a suit and a tie.
Right.
He loves, reveres his father and his legacy. That's why he created the Ocean Futures Society, which is to educate people and to talk about the legacy of underwater exploration. But he will also, be a little bit of flirtatious. He actually connected at some point to tell me, I'm going to tell you a secret. I once drank a 2,000-year-old wine. And I said, how is that possible? He said, well, we were diving somewhere in Greece. I'm not going to tell you the location. We found this ancient shipwreck. Wow. And we found wine in some of the ancient containers. So we decided to taste it. I said, how did it taste? I said, terrible. But I can say I drank a 2,000-year-old wine.
That's incredible. So you got a chance to have a little bit of a personal connection with him.
Yeah.
That's amazing. In covering this film, what is it that you hope people, viewers, take away from it?
The reality that we're all connected. Animals, human beings, little microorganisms, plankton, zooplanktons, phytoplanktons, whatever. We're all connected. We destroy one part of it, we destroy everything. I always believe that film is the connecting form of every culture, of all cultures. And this is exactly what this film is doing. It's putting you right there, somewhere where you would never be otherwise, to show you this is what is being destroyed. Preserve it. It is our heritage to preserve. It's our privilege, as he put it, to preserve life on Earth.
Now, to see Penelope's entire story on Cousteau's film Secret Ocean 3D, head to our website, voanews.com.
Speaking of movies with a message, at this year's South by Southwest Film and Music Festival in Austin, Texas, some musicians from Mali were on hand to promote a film about how their lives were upturned by jihadists.
The Islamists prohibited playing music under threat of death. The documentary is a testament to artistic freedom and the fight for human rights. VOA's Greg Flakis has the story.
Music from around the world is heard all over Austin during South by Southwest, and many of the films shown are about music and musicians. But one film that premiered this year at the festival, They Will Have to Kill Us First, is about musicians in the West African nation of Mali who were driven into exile by jihadist rebels. Although government forces, with substantial help from the French military, drove the jihadists out of northern Mali in 2013, they continue to carry out terrorist attacks on nightclubs and other civilian targets. One of the musicians on hand for the film's premiere, Omar Touré, says he cannot return to his hometown.
The situation in north of Mali is not stable.
He belongs to a group called Songhai Blues that now plays to large audiences in Europe and the United States and reaches fans everywhere with an online video. The documentary film came about when former BBC producer Johanna Schwartz, who loves West African music, heard about the jihadist threat to musicians in Mali in January 2012.
They were so eager to talk about what was going on because they knew that, one of the ways to fight back against what was happening in their country was to spread the word and for as many people around the world as possible to know about it and to find out about it.
The title came from a woman singer who said if the jihadists want to stop musical performances in Mali, they will have to kill us first. And that is what the film is about, according to Schwartz.
And actually, it's quite an uplifting story at the end of the day, and I think that, hopefully we achieve that in the film.
She says the best way for people to support the musicians of Mali is to buy their records and listen to their music. Greg Flakis, VOA News, Austin, Texas.
And thank you to Greg Flakis for bringing us this amazing story right from South by Southwest Film and Music Festival in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, thanks to Greg. Well, it is time, sadly, for us to say goodbye. But remember, you can always watch us anytime on YouTube or on our website, voanews.com.
And you can spend some time checking out our other stories on our website. We've got some interesting special reports in addition to all the latest world news.
We do. Well, that is all our time for today. But thank you so much for watching, and goodbye until next time.